Hello again and welcome to another sculpting video. I'm Kate and today I have made Professor Heimerdinger and his little Poro from Arcane. Before I say anything else, don't you dare spoil season 2 for me. I have not watched it yet because I haven't had the time, and also of course out of respect for everyone else who hasn't watched it either. With that said, let's get started. To start off, I fold some foil into sort of a oval shape. This is to sort of start the base, but I remember that I need to come back to it later as I don't know how big I'm making Heimerdinger yet and I don't want to make it too big or too small. I then roll some foil for the head and the body while connecting it, but later on I do actually take the head off to do it separately as it kind of gets a little bit tedious. I then roll out some clay. I'm using Super Sculpey Firm. You might have noticed in my last video I used it quite a bit. I've gotten used to how it feels compared to the regular stuff, and I've grown to like it. I used to hate it, but now I actually quite enjoy using it. So I'm going to use it for most of the video except for the base. I then bend the wire using my pliers, and one of his arms are going to be kind of curled up behind his back while the other one's going to be out holding next to his head one of the Hextech crystals. You know, the round one, not the all round, what am I on about? You know, the kind of polished looking ones. I then keep adding some more clay and then realise, you know, I need to take the head off to do it separately, so I take the head off, kind of throw it to the side for the moment and continue working on the body. I add his little shoes and also give them sort of like a belt latch thing on the, I don't really know what it is. It's actually quite difficult to find references of Heimerdinger with his full body because he's so short, so most of them just kind of weirdly cut off his feet for some reason because his head's also so giant, but you know, I kind of just improvised. His trousers kind of come over the bottom of his shoes, presumably because he's a little bit too short, and I give them some folds and creases using this tool. I then begin to work on his sort of coat. It's like, you know, the long blue coat, I don't know what it is, probably I'll call it like a jacket or something, and I give it this rim that's going to be gold later on. It took me a few tries to get this right because I couldn't quite figure out how to get it to lie nicely on Heimerdinger without it kind of splitting if I touched it too much, but because I used Firm, I think it held together a little bit easier than I expected it would. I then added some folds and creases to make it look a little bit more like fabric, and then I realised that I did the coat sort of the wrong way, so I had to cut it in half and put it together at the back, and I lost some detail in there, but I just added it straight back. Then onto the hands. You know, if you're an artist, whether you're a sculptor or not, you probably know how difficult hands are to make. Oh, it makes me cringe every single time, but I think it came out okay. This is sort of the hand on top, which is going to be holding the Hextech crystal. It's sort of, you know, like pinching it with 2 fingers, and I haven't really made that pose with hands before, but I think it came out okay. I then add kind of the bottom of his coat and blend it up into the rest of his body. Again, losing just a little bit of detail, but I can just add that in later on as I need to detail the rest of the coat anyways. I then make the teeny tiny little belt latch that's on the front of his coat. It's a bit difficult to kind of figure out the pattern on it, but I think I kind of just winged it or wung it, I don't know, and it came out okay. Then for the front of his coat, sort of this part folds over like this. I was going to add a separate triangle, but then I realised just doing it as a rectangle and folding it over to make it look like a triangle was probably the best way to go, so I did that. And then I added all of the little sort of details on the front of the coat, like the little latches and all of that kind of jazz. As well as, of course, little details using this very sharp tool. I then make these little sort of bags on the side of him. I don't know what they are, but they're kind of like giant pockets or little bags on his coat. I don't know how they don't pull the coat down, but you know. So I add them in, and also these kind of like weird little clothy bits. I don't know what they are, honestly. I'm not gonna analyze the costume design of Heimerdinger. I then add the Hextech crystal and move on to his head. I carve out some areas for the eye sockets and also, of course, the eyeballs on top. And whenever I'm doing eyes, I have to, of course, add the eyelids like this. And then I realise that it looks very tired. It always, I don't know why. Just like, there's just a very short period where whatever I'm making, if it has eyes, just looks really tired. I don't know why. It's just really strange. I think it's just because I make the eyelids too, like, outwards, and then I have to kind of smush them in, and then it looks a bit more normal. Then I just add sort of these lines of clay to the back of his head. Of course, I go later to the front of his head. These are just the little bits of his hair. I do some of them in layers where I put some up at the top and then add some beneath them, just to give it, you know, a little bit more depth. Of course, there's gonna be layering when it comes to hair like this, but of course, on the front of Heimerdinger himself, he doesn't have as much layering as I thought a character with this much hair would have. But I think the way that I did it came out okay in the end. It sort of has like a little swoosh in it to the side. Then I go in and add some more hair, or not hair, but more clay to represent hair on the eyebrows. He does look a little bit curious, as he will be looking at the, of course, Hextech crystal. Then I go in and make the ears. He has giant ears, and at first I was going to do them out of coarse clay, which is the clay that kind of bends after it's been baked, but I decided not to, as it was a little bit sticky, and also it has a tendency of sort of getting really thin really quickly. I don't know why, it just does. And then his giant moustache. Is it moustache? Yeah, it's a moustache really, isn't it? Look, I don't know what race Heimerdinger is, but there's one dapper moustache, I must say. And of course, his tiny little nose in there as well, and his mouth at the bottom. Then, for the final touch on the head, I just scratch in with this sort of roundish pointed tool to make it look all like hair all over. It was very difficult not kind of smushing all the details that I had already made, but I did end up doing that. So after I put it onto the baking tray without picking it up again, I just added in more of those little lines everywhere, just so that it doesn't look too dampened with my fingerprints all over. While that's in the oven, I then go in and have some clay glue onto this piece of foil that I made right at the start of the video. I smush it down onto some clay, add some more of the clay glue, and then fold it over. The base is going to kind of just be like stones almost, not even at all, very random. Of course, there is linear patterns to things that are random. So, of course, I didn't just throw down random squares and rectangles all over the place. I did have to, because I'm just a little bit of a perfectionist, I can't let it look too random, but it has to look a little bit random. Anyways, I'm waffling. I have to texture the base and then attach his head and work on Poro, or his Poro. Honestly, I don't know much about League of Legends. This is like a little creature. It's either a creature or a character. I think it's a race of like a species. I don't know. I don't know what it does. I don't know what it is, but it's cute and I love it. This one specifically actually has one sort of whitish eye, but I've seen on other ones that they don't usually, so I'm kind of curious about that as to why this one looks like that. Maybe it's a scar? I don't know. The one critique that I have pretty much for this entire sculpture is this little guy, specifically its eyes. I don't know what happened. They are too far apart, I think. I just can't put my finger on what I did wrong. I think they were just a little bit too far apart and not far enough, like, down close to the moustache. Oh, I think it's I don't know. Why do they both have a moustache? Yeah, that's strange. Okay, it's kind of funny. It's cute. It's very cute. But Yeah, I also give him his little horns. Finding the colour for that was a bit difficult later on, but whatever. Jumping ahead a little bit too far. I then add his fur. I texture the moustache by giving it some definition to make it look like little tufts of fur. And then with that same tool that I used earlier on Heimerdinger's head, I go in and texture most of it. And then add this sort of bandage, I think, onto the horn. I don't know if it's a bandage. But then it's finished and I just have to start painting. In my old videos, I mostly used the beige colour of Super Sculpey, which is of course the original version, and now using this firm, which is grey, I've realised how satisfying it looks when painting it. I don't know, I think it's just layering on top of a darker colour is so much more satisfying than layering on top of a lighter colour. It's so nice to see a light colour layer on top of a darker colour, but so well without any colour peeking through. It's sorry, I know I'm going off about something random, but you know, I get a little bit giddy when it comes to paint looking good, okay? Anyways, I'm missing things I need to start catching up. I'm doing dry brushing, which is just, you know, adding a little bit of paint to your paintbrush and going over the surface to bring out those textures, and also can be used for gradients. Then with this sort of pinkish, I don't know, no, it's not salmon colour, is it? I don't know what colour to call that. I go in with the sort of the mouth area, the nose, the ears, and also the eyelids after I've painted the eyes his blue, I guess. It was a bit difficult with the gradient. I had to add a darker blue on top and then lighten the blue on the bottom. It came out okay. It came out okay. The tips of his ears actually do have a little bit of fluff. I didn't texture it like that, but I did paint it as if the fluff was there. And then I go in and blend out that sort of pinkish colour that I did around the eyes with the fur around it. Onto his coat, I do a navy blue for the base coat, going pretty much everywhere, even areas which I'm going to paint other colours for the most part, except for the belt and the hands really. And then kind of once that's done, I go in again dry brushing with a lighter shade of blue. I really enjoyed how this looks, honestly. It makes it look like a nice leather. I don't know. I've never really made that happen before, but it looks really nice. There are also some black details, kind of. I'm assuming this area is sort of where it moves the most, so it's sort of a different kind of fabric that would be able to move a bit better. Then just going in, adding other details like the brown for the belt and the gloves as well. This part is extremely satisfying to me. I love using gold, so I go in, add gold to all of the lines and stuff where it would be. It's a bit difficult because kept overlapping onto the blue where I didn't want to overlap on the blue. With gold, I found that doing a dark colour underneath really helps the gold to shine through. So like black or even blue in this instance, which is why I didn't avoid those areas, because, you know, it actually made it look a little bit shinier. His trousers were sort of this kind of just greyish colour. It was a bit difficult to decide what colour his trousers were. I don't know if it was a light grey or a dark grey, but I think it came out okay. Then with the Hextech crystals, I have to start off with a dark blue, then with a sort of aqua, and then a little bit of white. I also made an extra 3 which are going to lie on the floor, and of course I paint them the exact same way. Onto Poro, I do this sort of lavender colour. I'm not quite sure. I couldn't quite figure out what colour it was supposed to be, but I think this lavender came out sort of okay. Well, it's a little bit lighter than lavender. I don't know. But then I go in and dry brush sort of a white. This is not really a white, but it looks white because the undercoat is a little bit darker. Only one of his paw pads is exposed, so I just paint that brown and leave the rest because you won't be able to ever see them. Dry brushing on the horns was a little bit hard. I kept messing up because on that first horn I, for some reason, don't know why I didn't use my brain, was dry brushing in the wrong direction, so I got into all of the cracks. Very, very bad. One eye is black, one eye is white, and then I add the little highlights, of course, in white as well. After painting his tongue, it's done and onto the base. Off camera, I do actually gloss both Heimerdinger and Poro's eyes as well, just to give it a bit more of a shine and not make them look so flat. The base is just sort of this greyish colour. I added a bit of brown in there to make it look a little bit more natural, and then I just dry brush on top, and then that base is pretty much done. The final detail is gluing everything down. And Professor Heimerdinger, his Poro, and the Hextech crystals are complete. I'm proud of this. Honestly, I really think it looks quite close to Heimerdinger, and Poro, well, it's cute at least. I'm probably going to watch season 2 this weekend, and I am crossing my fingers that neither of these fluffy guys die because I love them. If you made it this far, I applaud and thank you, and if it wouldn't be too much to ask, a like and subscribe would both be greatly appreciated. Of course, here are also my socials like Instagram and TikTok, and my Etsy too as well. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time. Ta-ta!